On the cloud here. Good morning, One Heart, One Mind Center for Spiritual Living. And I see Claire's here. And Gisela, good morning. I am going to start us off with something from Gary Lynn Floyd. It's actually a video, so I'm going to share my screen, the video. Hopefully, everybody will be able to see and hear. Can y'all hear that?
Everybody get up on your feet. See the light in everybody you meet. Everybody get up on your feet. See the light in everybody you meet. Let us be reminded of who we've come to be. We are love, we are one. One big family. Hey, hey, yeah, yeah. Hey, 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 yeah, yeah. Everybody get up on your feet. See the light in everybody you meet. Everybody get up on your feet. See the light in everybody you meet. Let us be reminded of who we've come to be. We are love, we are one. One big family. Hey, hey, yeah, yeah. Hey, 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 yeah, yeah. Let us make a joyful sound. Here we stand on holy ground. Let us make a joyful sound. Here we stand on holy ground. Let us make a joyful sound. Hey, 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 hey. Everybody get up on your feet. See the light in everybody you meet. Everybody get up on your feet. See the light in everybody you meet. Let us be reminded of who we've come to be. We are love, we are one. One big family. Hey, hey, yeah, yeah. Hey, 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 yeah, yeah. Let us make a joyful sound. Here we stand on holy ground. Let us make a joyful sound. Here we stand on holy ground. Let us make a joyful sound. Hey, 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 hey. Everybody get up on your feet. See the light in everybody you meet. Hey, hey, yeah, yeah. Hey, 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 yeah, yeah.
Yeah. We didn't actually get up on our real feet, but our proverbial feet. Good morning, Relaine. Oh, lots of people here. It's nice to see everybody this morning. Lissa, I muted you, but I'm going to unmute you because you are our practitioner of the day.
Yes, yes. Well, what a great way to start with that high energy message, and also I think that's perfect in relationship to the whole thing of vulnerability, to remind us of the fact that we are one human family, and that basically love is in all of us, and no matter what happens, love is always there, and we're really. Um, anyway, we're connected to one another. But as I was looking at the vulnerability, I kind of looked it up on YouTube and got all these videos from what's her name?
Brene Brown.
Brene Brown. That's it. Yes. And it was really quite fascinating to me because she is a social worker and so am I, but we're very different. And she even explains that in one of her talks, where she talks about how she's a fixer. Her concept is to fix you. And she noticed that the people who were more successful as social workers were the ones who sat and listened to people for a long time and empathized. And this was just sort of not her path. Her path is research. But it was fascinating to read these various things, or listen to her talking and hearing her, because she did 6 years of research on shame and vulnerability. And then finally, essentially, I think that towards the end is when she came to the conclusion of looking at the positives. The first, she was really looking at shame and that feeling of vulnerability that we frequently, that you even say the word and you think, oh, that's just laying myself out there for murder. And so she went through the research in relation to that, and I think we all need to remember that we do tend to look at the negative before we look at the positive. And so then she began looking more at the positives of vulnerability and the fact that you need to have vulnerability in order to even express empathy or be in a relationship that has any depth, because you have to allow that openness, that space of okay, I'm going to take the risk. And that's the only way that you really get it. And she talked about it also in terms of creativity, and I thought a lot about that in terms of because I have some issues in relation to that. I was perfectly fine as far as vulnerability was concerned about getting up on the stage. I mean, I'm okay, not the first time, but once I did it and it was such fun, that then it became something that was fun and was and I could get more and more expressive and silly. And I actually was able kind of to do that for myself in terms of my writing, because much of what I write is silly. But it's like expressing that out into the world is still not happening, and is still a place of my own vulnerability. And I was realizing in all of this how I really need to kind of pay attention to that and work through it. But I think that each of us has that kind of thing. But you think about anything that I really think it's valuable to look for yourself at the places where you have just jumped and said, I'm going to go for it, instead of allowing the vulnerability to stop you. And I think everybody will find something that was either fun or really, really important, like falling in love with, and moving through all of the layers of that. Because, you start with the vulnerability that makes you first engage, but then to get into the depth of a relationship, you have to increase your level of openness and vulnerability and willingness to be seen. And I think that there's a basis of all of this, which we've been looking at ourselves kind of week after week, in terms of the whole thing of loving ourselves, that you kind of have to love yourself first and appreciate yourself and be able to see your whole self, that it's like, no matter, instead of looking at yourself of that, I got to fix this stuff, that it's kind of like, well, this is part of me and this is who I am. And I want to express my wholeness. And I think that Brene Brown speaks of the concept of wholeheartedness, which is kind of like putting your whole heart into whatever you're doing or feeling or thinking. And so I think that this is all, I think also vulnerability is required for us to be able to live with the invisible. I think that in order to even believe in a power higher than ourselves, you have to believe in the invisible, and you have to go through all the people who say, oh, that's passé, forget that, God doesn't exist, or you're wasting your time. And I think that that's a really big part of vulnerability too, particularly, I think for myself in terms of moving away from a family that is very involved in standard Christianity, and that particular religious path doesn't serve me anymore. And so, but it's difficult to move away from family, but at the same time, I know they still love me. And so I feel very blessed in relation to that. And it's like I am not excluded from any family event. So I appreciate that. So I think that's kind of the message that I think personally it's valuable to look at the times when you've allowed yourself to be vulnerable and that it's worked out, rather than the times that you've been vulnerable and somebody stepped on your toes. So that's kind of where I am with vulnerability. So excuse me, why don't we now just take a breath and have some prayer. So in this beautiful new day, I know that we are united in the spirit of that one divine energy that is in, around, and through all that is, was, or ever shall be. And that we're blessed to enjoy our own communion with the one and one another as we hear the words of Rev. Michelle and bring them into our heart and mind. There's a message today for all, according to need. And so I'm grateful in knowing that our connection as a community supports us in hearing and using the truth, so that we can expand our consciousness, and that as we find that peace and love and connection inside ourselves, that's what goes out into the world exponentially. And that's the way that we can change the world and create a world in peace and love that works for everyone. And so I release my word into the law with great thankings that I have been able to be exposed to these truths and to be able to incorporate them into my life and to continue growing. And I know that each of us is joyful in the same way. And so I release my word, and we can release it together by saying, and so it is. Our affirmation: from stillness I awaken, from rest I rise renewed. The life within me blossoms in perfect time. I am transformed, aligned, and alive in spirit, and so it is.
Thank you, Lissa.
You're welcome.
That was a perfect preface to today's message. And let's see. I have another song. This one is also from Greg Mayer. I know I did one from him last week, but I really like it. Oops. I'm going to only share sound because there's no video, but let me get that together. And now, here we go. Oh, that is not it. Yes, that is it. Can you hear that?
You can say that you stand apart, put a fence around your yard. You can build a tall rampart, guard it with a gun. You can dig yourself a moat, burn the bridge and burn the boat. It won't matter that much, you know, 'cause all the world is one. All the world is one. can march in a big parade every Independence Day. You can raise up your own flag, sing your own anthem. It'll ring out in the air with the other anthems there. To the winds of the earth declare, all the world is one. All the world is one. Go and ask the Buddha when he's sitting under the tree. Go ask Walt Whitman when he's looking out at the sea. Ask Alan Shepard when he's standing up on the moon, staring at that pearl of blue. Ask an atom in the breath you take. Ask the water by the riverbank. Ask a strand of DNA that's written in your blood. One life running in your veins, one life from one big bang. You can try and separate it, but all the world is one. All the world is one. Go and ask the Buddha when he's sitting under the tree. Ask Annie Dillard when she's up on Tinker Creek. Ask Alan Shepard when he's standing up on the moon, staring at that pearl of blue. You can take an outbound train, try to make a getaway. You can ride off like John Wayne to the setting sun. But earthlings don't leave town, they just go round and round until they figure out all the world is one. All the world is one. All the world is one. All the world is one.
All the world is one. Couldn't have said it better myself. Oh, my friends, it's lovely to be here with you this morning. We have a nice full house today for us. So, as always, whether you're here in the actual real-time Zoom room or you're joining us by watching the replay, I just want us to know that together we're creating this shared field of love and peace and wholeness. I talked about this last week when we were in at home, that there's this field in which something real can be felt and revealed, and I just think that we all contribute to that expansion of human consciousness. I think it's really powerful. And as I said, Lissa's invocation and her few words that she said is a real good preface to today's message, which of course is the path of vulnerability. And vulnerability, as she said, is a word we kind of hear a lot these days, and it's definitely been popularized over the last couple of decades by Brené Brown. And if you don't know who she is, she's an author, teacher, research person. She's a researcher extraordinaire, and she's kind of helped transform our understanding of vulnerability from something that we once labeled as weakness into something that we now recognize as essential for any kind of real human connections with our true self, with the divine, and any kind of authentic connection with one another. And Brené teaches that when we self-protect, when we close down and we aren't being who we really are, to avoid vulnerability, it doesn't really protect us from rejection or failure. We think it's going to. But here's what happens when we shut down and aren't open and who we are, we also limit our capacity to experience any real joy, love, or any kind of deeper, meaningful connection to life and to each other. And there's a passage in one of Brene Brown's books, her book Daring Greatly, that she returns to again and again. One that has deeply shaped her understanding of vulnerability. And if I'm honest, it's kind of reshaped my understanding of vulnerability as well. It comes from Theodore Roosevelt. You've probably heard it. It's a very long passage and worth the read. But what I'd like to focus on is just this piece. And it says, it's not the critic who counts. The credit belongs to the one who is actually in the arena. The one who is actually in the arena. And this is such a great metaphor for vulnerability. And of course, the arena isn't just one place. It's anywhere in life that feels risky or uncertain, where we feel exposed or open to any kind of criticism, because the one in the arena is not the one who has it all figured out. It's just the one who is willing to be seen, who's willing to act without guarantees, who's willing to care, without putting on that self-protective armor. And from a spiritual perspective, the arena is how we move through life itself, because every time we choose to love, we step into the arena. Every time we tell the truth, we step into the arena. Every time we let go of control and we trust something deeper. Can you feel that? I know how that feels. We step into the arena. But if you're anything like me, up until now, here's what we've been tempted to do. We just kind of stand on the edge of the arena because it feels safer there. We analyze and we protect ourselves and until we feel strong enough or certain enough or healed enough to enter the arena. And yet the paradox is this, that the strength to get into the arena is not something we bring with us into the arena. It's something that is revealed while we're in the arena. It's the process. It's how it shows up for us. In the Science of Mind philosophy, Ernest Holmes taught this really kind of quiet but very powerful idea that life always seeks to express itself through us. We hear that all the time, but let's hear it in a deeper way. Life always seeks to express itself through us, but it can't express through a closed and a guarded or protected heart. It can't move through us unless we have the courage and the trust to step into the arena. And there have certainly been times in my life where I was hesitant to step into the arena. For several years, I completely ignored that inward call that I had to go to ministerial school. It felt a little risky. Where would the money come from? What if I'm not good at it? And after a while, my resistance became painful. It was more painful than the perceived risk. And so I opened my heart, and with faith, and I trusted. And guess what? The money showed up, and my stamina showed up, and I moved past the obstacles that I had created for myself. And as a result, I opened the door to countless gifts that I could never have imagined. And today, I'm just so incredibly grateful that I found that I was able to step into that arena. Vulnerability isn't weakness. It's the opening through which the divine pours itself into form. It's the willingness to stand in the arena of our own lives, not as one who we think we should be, but who we actually are. And it's in that moment when we decide this is how I'm going to show up as the real me, that something sacred happens. That false self, the one we've built an image around, that the person who wants to control and protect, that begins to fall away. And what rises in its place is something real, something alive, something whole. So perhaps the path of vulnerability is not about becoming more exposed, but just about becoming more available to life, available to love, available to the deeper truth of who we really are. Because vulnerability is not just about what we show, it's about what we're really willing to let go of. The old ideas, the old stories. And there's no expiration date on when this can happen. We can choose to enter the arena at any time, to be open and willing at any point in our lives. Sometimes I think, oh, I'm just too old. You know what? I am not. I can always step into that moment, into that arena. And I can't, when I was putting my talk together, I kept thinking about my brother Randy, who struggled with alcoholism for many years. He just turned 69 and he's been sober for 3 years. And to me, he's just kind of a living example that when we become willing, I mean, truly willing to open, to soften, to be available, spirit meets us there and it begins to move through us at any age, at any stage. I was talking to him the other day and he was talking about, I don't know why I waited so long. And I said, it doesn't matter. You are here now. You have stepped into the arena. Because many of us move through life wearing what we might call those outer faces, ways of being that help us function, that help us belong and feel safe. And we learned how to be competent and strong and agreeable, kind of, put together. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. These identities were formed from intelligence. They've helped us navigate our world. But over time, you may have noticed this, something subtle starts to happen. We don't just wear the faces, we begin to believe they're who we are. And even more than that, we begin organizing our lives around maintaining them, which is why we often hear vulnerability described as taking off the mask. And yes, that's true. But there's a deeper invitation here. Vulnerability is not just removing the mask, it's becoming willing to stand there before a new one forms, before we know what's next. It's that space. That's the vulnerability, is being able to stand in the uncertainty and feel comfortable. And this is the space of our spiritual path, where we no longer fully believe in the old identity, but haven't yet, see, how can we put it, stabilized into a new one. And that space can feel uncomfortable and uncertain and unformed, like we have nothing to stand on. And most of us have been conditioned to move through it as quickly as possible, to redefine ourselves, repackage, represent. But what if that in-between space isn't a problem to solve, but just a space to enter? Because that space really isn't emptiness. It's openness. It's free. I was just talking about that in the meditation earlier. The place where something deeper than our constructed identity begins to emerge. And Ernest Holmes, and brilliant man, he speaks directly to this idea. And he uses a slightly different language, as he always does. But I found a quote of his that I really want to share. He wrote, "We can awaken to the living presence of the eternal God within each of us and enter into a realization of peace and joy. And as we come to surrender all littleness, all fear, all doubt, the river of life flowing from the mind of God will renew our vigor, remake our strength, enable our being, heal our body, and bring peace to our hearts. As we let go, we don't have to hang on to those old ideas of fear and doubt. Then the river of life flows from the mind of God, and it renews our vigor, and it remakes our strength, and it enables our being. It heals our bodies. It brings peace to our hearts. How beautiful is that? Listen carefully to his words. As we come to surrender, this is vulnerability, not performance. Surrender as allowing. And what are we surrendering? He says we're surrendering our littleness, our fears, our doubt. We might even hear it this way. We are surrendering the need to define ourselves from a limited place. We're surrendering the identities we built out of protection rather than truth. We're surrendering that tight grip we've had on who we think we have to be. And then he jumps into the beautiful image of the river of life flowing from the mind of God. I mean, think of that image. That river is not something we create, it's something we allow. So what if the masks we wear aren't protecting us, but constricting the flow? What if vulnerability is simply the willingness to stop constricting life that is always seeking to express itself as us? It's that quiet, powerful idea that weaves through Holmes' teachings. Because Holmes told us over and over again, life always seeks to express through us. A couple of weeks ago, I remember I used that image of a clenched fist. Have you ever felt like your life is like a clenched fist? You feel the tension of holding it together, holding yourself in, holding yourself back. Well, vulnerability is not breaking the hand. Vulnerability is just opening the hand. It's the gentle willingness to open it, when we relax and we experience that deeper intelligence. It's a softening. Can you feel that softening? We feel something holding us. We can stop performing and begin to feel what's real. Vulnerability puts us in that place of the unknown, which can be a little scary, as I said. Truth is, we don't know what's going to happen in the arena. But you know what? The caterpillar doesn't know what's going to emerge from the chrysalis. And I wonder if Jesus really knew what would happen on the other side of his 3 days in the tomb. It takes our reliance on that flow of universal truth. Remember that piece in the quote, the river of life will renew our vigor, remake our strength. We don't figure out who we are and then the river flows. We allow the river to flow and it reveals who we are. So in a way, vulnerability becomes kind of a sacred trust, not in our ability to define or remake ourselves, but in life's ability, God's ability to express through us. And maybe it's as simple as saying, you know what? I don't fully know who I'm becoming, but I'm willing to be here and trust that something real is unfolding through me. And this isn't weakness, it's spiritual courage. And this is where something beautiful begins to unfold. Because when we stay in that space of open willingness, something shifts within us. I ran across this Maya Angelou quote, which I think is really powerful, that kind of fits here, that we are only free when we no longer belong to one place. And in that freedom, we belong everywhere. And I love this idea because it points us to this. As long as we're trying to fit into an identity, we're not free. As long as I need to be seen a certain way, as long as I need to be right or liked or approved of, as long as I'm organizing my life around maintaining an image, I'm not free. I'm managing. And vulnerability is our willingness to release that familiar mask before the new one forms. It kind of sets us free. It's living in what's possible. We talk about that all the time, living in the possibility rather than what we think we already know. So how do we live this in real life? Because it all sounds great, right? But it might be as simple as pausing in the middle of a conversation and telling the truth, even when our voice shakes and we're a little bit afraid to say what we really think. It might look like not pretending we have it all together when we don't. It might look like letting go of the need to control how everything turns out and allowing ourselves to just be present instead. Sometimes it's very subtle, it's noticing in the moment, I'm about to say what I think they want to hear, and choosing instead to come back to what's real and speak truth from a deep inner love. I remember Dr. King Gordon one time saying, you can say anything if you come from a heart full of love. Ultimately, this path of vulnerability is not about being seen by others. It's about being in integrity with our own divine nature. It's about aligning not with who we've learned to be, but what we know to be true within us. And there's a freedom in that, as Maya Angelou said, not the freedom to do whatever we want, but the freedom to be who we truly are without apology, without performance, without the constant need to adjust ourselves to be acceptable. And we don't practice this all at once. It's not dramatic, it's gentle. Honesty in places where we notice ourselves tightening, by asking ourselves, where am I managing how I'm being seen right now? Where am I holding back what feels true? Where am I trying to control instead of just trust? And then without forcing anything, just soften. Vulnerability is not about exposing ourselves and telling everyone our deep, dark secrets. There are probably only a few people in your life that you should trust to hold your most intimate thoughts and feelings. But we can be our true selves with anyone. We can come from that authentic, loving power within us. The things Home calls the living presence of the eternal God within. That not just as an idea, but as an experience, and to live from that place. Something begins to happen naturally when we come from that place and stand in that flow. We become more real, more available, more alive. The path of vulnerability is a path of losing everything that wasn't really true in the first place. It's a path of availability in being open to the flow of the divine in the moment. It's really, honestly, I keep coming back to this. It's really a path of trust. So I'll share a simple story from my own life. Because sometimes vulnerability doesn't look big. It doesn't look like this big life-changing thing. It sometimes just looks like a very ordinary occurrence. So a while ago, I found myself in a conversation with someone I love very much, even though we have very different perspectives on life. And something she said didn't really quite sit right with me. And I could feel it, that feeling, as I said earlier, that tightening inside, that moment when you got a choice. I could feel two impulses rising up in me. And one was the familiar, just let it go, keep the peace, don't make this uncomfortable. And the other was that quieter, but more honest, say something real, trust the moment. So I kind of stood in that in-between place for a moment, not really fully knowing where I was going to land, and not really knowing what I was going to say, because vulnerability, it really doesn't have a script. So I took a breath and I kind of went into that heart space and I spoke lovingly, gently, honestly, not perfectly, maybe not the most eloquent that I could speak, but truthful. And there was this kind of brief pause, and then things softened. Her heart responded to my heart, and the conversation deepened, and the connection became more real. And I realized the vulnerability wasn't in what I said, it was in my willingness to speak truth from a loving heart, not in opposition, but in true connection. I think that's how the path of vulnerability often looks in our lives. It's not always these big visible moments. It's the quiet invitations to be lovingly honest and a little more open and a little more real. And each time we say yes to that, we step a little more fully into the truth of who we are. So let's follow the path of vulnerability with courage and with curiosity, willing to step into the arena, even when the outcome isn't certain, willing to trust in that presence and the power of the divine within us. We don't have to have all the answers. We don't have to have it all figured out. We simply have to be willing to be open, willing to be present, willing to be real, willing to be who we are, because something begins to reveal itself, something true, something steady, something that's been there all along. It's kind of a deeper freedom when we decide that we are going to be vulnerable. The freedom to live in the truth of our being, not who we think we should be, but who we really are, we're whole, authentic, and beautifully and divinely human. And that is the path of vulnerability. Oh, my friends, let's take a breath. Let's take a breath and go into just a brief acknowledgement, kind of a grounding. I always do a prayer afterwards, and it's really just to ground us in to what truth you heard. So I invite us all to take a breath and to know that we are safe, loved, cared for, provided for, and all we have to do is show up, to be vulnerable in knowing that all is well. So I'm grateful for that. I hold it in my heart. I know it for you. And together we say, and so it is. And so it is, my friends. And so it is. Let's see. Sacred giving. Anybody know who's doing it? Oh, really?
Hello. So this is a time of sacred giving. It's a wonderful time to, give from our heart on how much we really receive from this really amazing community of One Heart, One Mind. And so we have different ways that you can give on Venmo, and you can just look up Venmo at One Heart, One Mind and see Michelle's pretty picture, and that's her. And then you can donate that way, or you can mail to the address.
Yeah, I didn't put up the ways to give, but I think most of us probably know it. And if you don't, you can pop me a text and I'll give you the address if you need it. But I think most people know. So I'm going to put up the sacred giving affirmation here. Thought I had it up, but I did not. Here we go.
Thank you, Michelle. Sacred giving. I give with a grateful heart, knowing that spirit is the source and substance of all supply. I joyfully participate in the circulation of abundance, and my offering blesses the world. And somehow I can't read the rest. Sorry, it's cut off.
That's okay. And returns to me multiplied.
I'm grateful and prosperous, and so it is.
There it is. You got it. Okay. All right. So as far as announcements, we have Monday evening prayer circle at 6:00. We have our Tuesday evening class that we're going to do this Tuesday. And I think is it chapters 9 and 10. Marcia, I think you already read them. I think that's what it is. It's in the newsletter, and I always send it out as well. Let's see, is your prayer group is this Wednesday, correct, Raylene?
Yes, yes, the prayer circle is this Wednesday at 10 o'clock.
And then the joyous expectancy of being me is the following week.
It's the last Wednesday of the month. Yeah.
So it's the 29th. So we got some time for that.
Yeah, we do.
Okay. And yeah, and I think that's about it. So I'm going to come back to you, Raylene, to do the benediction, and then I have a closing song for us.
Okay, so let's just close our eyes and feel the presence of God. Feel the vulnerability of being in the present moment. All the gifts lie there, all the divinity, our divine expression. We know that we're one. We're one. We're one. We're one with all the amazing vulnerability of being who we are, and how wonderful that is to be a divine being in a human body as one. And so today's talk was really wonderful, beginning with Lissa and the just the wise words that she shared of Brene Brown, who really speaks to vulnerability so much, and to the wonderful music, and to Reverend Michelle's wonderful talk about how vulnerability is really the expression of our loving heart, our divine self. And you used a quote from Ernest Holmes, which I can't say, but I really liked it. And so I'm just very grateful for today and for the service and for each and every one of you. I'm grateful for Ernest Holmes and Spiritual Mind Treatment Prayer, and the honor it is to be ourselves in this world, how important that really truly is. I release this prayer with such gratitude and such love, such beauty and order and flow and all the goodness of all the blessings and kindness. And I think that, animals really represent a vulnerability that's really wonderful. So we'll include them in this prayer. All right. So thank you, Spirit. Thank you, God. We release this prayer into the law, knowing that all is so. It is good. And so it is.
Oh, thank you. That was beautiful.
Welcome.
So I do have, this is a video, so I'm going to start it and then do full screen.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. take. I promise in this moment to keep my heart wide open. With every breath I take, I'm grateful. I am grateful, grateful. I am 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 grateful.
Oops, I'm muted. All right, my friends, I'm grateful too. And I am going to stop our recording now.